Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spellbound with Beth Ann. Today you are in for a treat. I have two guests for you. First, I'll be joined by Samantha Glasser, founder of the Columbus Moving Picture Show. That classic film convention will be happening soon, at the end of May. At the end of this episode, I have a world premiere for you. My previously unpublished interview with burlesque performer, entrepreneur, and classic film lover, Dita Von Teese. So sit for a spell with me and my guests. Samantha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Do you have an official title at the Columbus Moving Picture Show?
I guess I'm the founder. I run the background information, the booking of the dealers, the choosing of the films. I have a couple of people that help me with that, but I'm the founder, I suppose.
And your educational background tied into that, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah. I studied journalism. I love Leonard Maltin, so he was a journalist. I thought that would be perfect for me. I could be a movie critic maybe, so I minored in film as well.
He's an inspiration because he is somebody who made a career out of his passion. I think what you're doing is wonderful because there are so many of us classic film fans out there, and you're showing us how we could organize something. And you started as a fan going to an event yourself too, didn't you, with Cinevent?
Exactly. So when I had the opportunity to sort of take over the reins of Cinevent when it was ending, it felt like, okay, I finally found the way that I can contribute to the film hobby. And before that, I have intentions eventually to write a book about Dick Powell. So that was sort of always in the background, but I didn't feel like I was really contributing much other than, throwing in money for Kickstarters and things like that. So this was my way to sort of give back to this community because it's like a little family and it's fostered something in me that is really important. And so I wanted to give back and keep this event going for potentially future fans. You're a mom, I'm a mom. We want to keep younger kids interested in the black and white movies and this history because it's so timeless, really.
So as you were welcomed into a classic film fan space, you want to welcome others into a space that you've continued on. How long was Cinevent going on before you took it over?
Cinevent was going on for 52 years, which is a big legacy. I was a member of the staff around the time that one of the founders, Steve Haynes, passed away, which was about 2015. So it started gradually. I was writing write-ups about the films in the program book that we do every year. Because of my journalism background, I got in touch with Steve to do articles about Cinevent to help publicize it with the Lantern at OSU and various things. So they knew I could write. And so they solicited me for that. But over the years, my contributions grew because they saw that I had a passion for this and that I had the time to invest in it. So I started running the dealer room at the tail end of Cinevent. And so the founder's son, Michael, who took over after his dad passed, said, would you be interested? And so he really trained me. If it weren't for him, this would not be happening. So I really owe a lot to him.
He helped the legacy continue. And so out of Cinevent, the Columbus Moving Picture Show was born, and it entered a new era with a new name. How did you choose a name?
That was hard. We did a little contest to see if people would submit ideas. My original idea was to name it Cinehaven because it was similar to Cinevent, but we were concerned that maybe it would be too similar and that people would have difficulty with the transition. So we wanted it to be something that said it was vintage, but also a lot of people told me we call Cinevent Columbus because it's always been in Columbus. So I wanted to include Columbus in the name as well. So it's a little bit of a mouthful, Columbus Moving Picture Show. I always call it the picture show. Some people still call it Cinevent. Old habits die hard.
I never made it to Cinevent, but I had friends in Ohio who were always telling me to come out to Cinevent, and over in New York, come out to Capitol Fest. And I find it really interesting with Ohio in particular. There is a strong classic film community there, and there's a lot going on film-wise. What do you think makes Ohio such a haven for classic film fans and classic film events, classic film clubs? What is it about Ohio?
I think that the founders of Cinevent were local and that had something to do with the event itself being located here. There is a strong appreciation for history, I think, in Columbus. We have the Ohio Theater within walking distance of the Renaissance, where we have the Columbus Moving Picture Show. And we also have the Palace Theater, and there's a Southern Theater, these historic venues that have been preserved and turned into really like performance spaces. But we do have the summer movie series at the Ohio Theater every year. So people get to see black and white movies there. It's affordable. And I think that that sort of fosters that love. We also have quite a few colleges. So you have people who might be interested in making films who are here. It's a great art city. There's not just films, but there's the art museum and lots of different music events and venues and stuff like that. So I don't know, there's just something about, you wouldn't think, because some people say, oh, it's farmland or there's nothing going on there. We also, Columbus, not necessarily as much as Cincinnati and Cleveland, but have a lot of people from the classic era of Hollywood who hail from Ohio. I have a list on the website if people want to check it out, Ohio-born celebrities, but we have so many major stars that come from Ohio who ended up in Hollywood and making a big contribution.
If people check out your list or they're interested in a certain classic film star that they do know comes from Ohio, there really was a big push from Midwesterners to go west and to go to Hollywood who are interested in a career in the golden age of Hollywood.
Absolutely. So one of the stars that we're spotlighting this year is Warner Baxter, who is one of the few that is from Columbus. You know, he started out working here in the city, but then quickly had to go to New York because there weren't as many opportunities here as there were there. And he had quite a career, and then that brought him out to Hollywood, and the rest is history. But there's a lot of big stars that we try to spotlight over the years who are from Ohio. This year, in addition to Warner Baxter, we're showing a movie called Green Grass of Wyoming, which part of it was shot in Lancaster, Ohio, which is, half hour, 45 minutes south of Columbus. And so that's kind of cool because how often do you see movies that were actually filmed in Ohio? And then we also are running the silent film Hearts of the World. It's a D.W. Griffith silent film, which stars Lillian Gish, which we are very proud to say came from Ohio. She's from Massillon. And actually, there was another film festival that used to be run there called Cinesation. It was held at the Lillian Gish Theater. Unfortunately, that is no longer around. So that sort of shows you the importance of keeping these events going because so many of them have shut down over the years.
It's a great regional attraction too, and probably of economic benefit to your area to have all these film fans coming in to support the films, but also to support the city of Columbus.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a lot of great stuff, especially food. Columbus is a food town, and there are a lot of great restaurants within walking distance of the hotel. There's this deli called Lexi's on the corner. There's Ohio Pizza and Brew across the street. There's a great Asian fusion restaurant that I love called Tiger and Lily, just within walking distance. A great Italian restaurant called Due Amici. So there's lots and lots of stuff. People love Tip Top. It's a bar and grill really close by. There's really something for everybody. I think it's much more than just a film experience. It's, the social aspect is huge. This place is really a hub for film fans and meeting people that are interested in the same things because some of us don't get that on a regular basis. So it's really nice to get to chat with other people who know the obscure names like Byron Folger and Anita Garvin and, whoever. And it's also, there's even, if you want to go to the Ohio Theater and take a tour, you can walk over there. There's a record store nearby. You can check that out.
Just cycling back for a moment for the origins of the Columbus Moving Picture Show. Is it very different from what Cinevent was? Or in continuing the tradition, does it have a similar format?
It absolutely feels the same. I think that's why some people still call it Cinevent. The staff is all the same. I'm the only face that changed. The format is focused heavily on obscure films, the things that we show, and it's a marathon. I mean, it's all day long that these things are running. So you can pick and choose what you want to watch, or you can sit in the screening room all day until your butt falls asleep. And it's all 16 millimeter film. These are prints mostly sourced from private collections, so we get recommendations from people who are film collectors. We also have a huge dealer space. That's always been a big part of Cinevent and what sets Cinevent apart from other shows. It's a great location if you're looking for movie paper, if you're a poster collector, a lobby card collector, but we also have a lot of film dealers, and we've grown with our film dealers over the years. So if you are a collector, it's a great place to find, some hidden gems that you might not be able to find anywhere else. And it's nice too, if you're a collector and you're just buying on eBay, you can't check the stuff out before you buy it. You can hope that their descriptions are good, but it's not necessarily going to be super accurate. So to be in person, to talk to these people, to be able to see the items in person and know what the quality is. And also sometimes these people know the provenance of it. Oh, this came from this guy's collection and I got it on this date and whatever. So they can kind of give you the history of it too. That's really special. In terms of how we are different from Cinevent, we do seminars, which Cinevent really did not do. We have experts come in and share their knowledge. We have Dan Van Ness this year coming to talk to us about his new book on Warner Baxter. We have Jeff Dale coming to talk about his new book on Shemp Howard from the Three Stooges, who also did a lot of other things, which is why the title is called Much More Than a Stooge. But we have James Dark is coming to talk about his book on When Hollywood Came to Utah. He's going to introduce that film, The Green Grass of Wyoming, which was partly shot in Utah, but also partly shot in Lancaster, Ohio. People who really have a lot of knowledge on these topics, we want them to share that with people and give them a little bit of background on why these movies are cool.
So fun and education all together.
Absolutely. Yep.
You mentioned something about children being welcome at the event.
Absolutely. Yeah. We want to foster the love of classic movies in young people. I come from sort of the millennial generation. We didn't grow up with these movies on TV the way that the boomers did. The boomers would come from school. They could watch Laurel and Hardy. They could watch, the Little Rascals or Our Gang. We didn't have that. If your parents didn't introduce you to this stuff, where were you going to hear about it? There were remakes of things like The Little Rascals, but most of my friends didn't know that those movies were black and white shorts before it was a film. So unless you had exposure to it, maybe from a relative or somebody that passed it down to you, we lost that. So I want to foster that interest and that knowledge in younger kids, that exposure, simple exposure. All you got to do is sit them in front of the screen, show them a Buster Keaton short, and they'll love it. So we really encourage people to bring their kids to the show and introduce them to this movie love. People are super welcoming and happy to see the younger people.
I myself am Gen X. So when I was little, there were still classics on TV. We had two different stations that were pretty dedicated to classics in the south of Boston area. And then during the daytime, classic films were cheap. So we had Million Dollar Movie and Dialing for Dollars out here as well. And I just used to watch classics with my family. So it wasn't anything different, but my gateway was probably one of the stations out here that used to have a black and white comedy program. And they had Laurel and Hardy, Three Stooges, and of course, Our Gang. What was your gateway into classic film?
My dad would make sure that we saw a few things here and there. The Our Gang films we loved right from the beginning, and we would check those out from the library. So those Cabin Fever tapes that came out, we would rent those from the library. And then I remember one year, I must have been maybe 10-ish. They ran what they called Stoogerama on regular TV. We didn't have cable growing up, so our options were limited. Occasionally we would catch some old movies on PBS, but unless my parents really forced the issue, I mean, we weren't seeking that stuff out at that age. But we did see the Three Stooges. That was about it. Every now and then we would watch something older like the Ten Commandments when it was on TV at Easter, or my parents loved It's a Wonderful Life, so we watched that pretty regularly, but not any regularity. In high school, I took it upon myself to start checking out all the Our Gang films, and then I started to become interested in, well, what happened to these guys? Are any of them still alive? Did they make any other movies? And so on my own, I just started going to the library and checking these things out and, marathoning them and going crazy and obsessive about it. So, and that's not a typical story, I don't think. So, like I said, if these things aren't out there and available to younger people, then they're never going to discover them. So bringing them to an event like this, I think, is really important.
Is the sweet spot for the Columbus Moving Picture Show silent to golden era of Hollywood?
Yeah, we typically run things from the beginning of film up until about 1960. We do try to show a few color films a year, but the focus, the genres that we stick to, we don't have a genre that we stick to. We try to dabble in everything. We show a serial, we show short comedies, we show silent movies, we show dramas, we show noir, we show pre-code, everything. We try to kind of touch on everything, something for everyone at the picture show. Our focus really is on rarities. things that you can't see elsewhere, things that don't show up on TCM, things that maybe were popular at one time but have fallen by the wayside. We do tend to show a lot of like B films or programmers, but we do try to include people who are recognizable. So, for example, one of the movies we're going to show is called Lady and Gent. It's from 1932, starring Wynn Gibson and Charles Starrett. Not names that most people would know, but it is a very early appearance by John Wayne. So that might draw somebody in to check this movie out.
Are there any character actors that tend to be featured a lot at the fest that are fest favorites?
Well, I mentioned Byron Folger before. He seems to show up in everything. Yeah, Max Davidson. We are going to run 3 of his silent comedies, but we love Max Davidson. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an emphasis on the character actors that were in comedies. But yeah, we just love those faces, the people that are sort of the unsung heroes of the classic era who enhanced everything just by their presence.
One thing I love about going to events like yours, there's usually applause for these character actors when they first appear on screen.
Oh, absolutely. Or if they do something particularly funny and memorable. We have Misha Auer in one of our films this year sing another chorus, and he's particularly flamboyant and interesting and very fun. So yeah, there's definitely when the movies are over, there's definitely applause.
And are there any big stars of the earlier eras that tend to be featured?
Well, this year we're going to show several films with Lillian Roth. She was a wonderful pre-code singing starlet who had the greatest dimples ever. It's just a great smile. She also had an alcohol problem, so she didn't have a very long career. The Susan Hayward film I'll Cry Tomorrow is based on her story. Later in life, her acting career kind of struggled, but early on in the 30s, she was wonderful, just a shining star. So we're going to run 3 of her things. Take a Chance, 1933. And then right before that, we're going to show a short called Naughty Cow. It's just like a little cute musical short, 1932 with her. And then for our annual animation program, we run cartoons, obviously, but there are some Follow the Bouncing Ball sing along kind of song shorts. So we're going to be running a Lillian Roth sing along. And it's great coming to these events because people will sing along. You will hear people singing along in the audience.
Wonderful to get that kind of participation. And speaking of participation, we've been talking about silence, but we haven't talked about any of the accompanists yet. Who do you have accompanying the films?
We have Dr. Philip Carley and we have David Drazen. They're both fantastic. They've been with us for a very long time. We get a baby grand piano for them to play on, and it's such an experience to be there with the music live in the room with you. Even if you're right next to the piano, it's like, it moves you internally to be there, feeling that coming through your body and to watch these movies, especially something like Hearts of the World, which is very dramatic. I think it will be very powerful.
As somebody who's been to more than one silent show, if anybody in the audience has never been to a silent with live music and you get the opportunity to go to the Columbus Moving Picture Show or even some other screening somewhere else, it's a whole different experience to have it live versus just on TV.
Absolutely.
What goes into putting on a big event like this? This is not just a festival, but it's also a convention. You've got screenings, you've got talks, you've got a dealer's room. How many people does it take to put something like this together?
Well, we have 3 projectionists. We have, I think, 4 or 5 front desk staff who have been loyal to the show since the Cinevent days. A lot of the people who are in our front desk staff are related to the founders. So, their love of this and their parents' love of this show are the reason that it can still happen and run smoothly. We have some volunteers behind the scenes who help us with things as small as putting out flyers locally to advertise the show. And, with our seminars, we do seek some people out, but some people come to us. They say, I have this knowledge and I'd like to share it with people. And how do I become involved in your show? So those are always really helpful because it gives us a variety of things and maybe some things that we might not have thought to ask someone to present. A few years ago, at the 2022 show, we had a woman whose mother was part of there was a Columbus, I think it was called Kelly's Clean Comedies. It was a Columbus-based moving picture production company, and it was a silent era thing. This woman came up with a script, got a cast together, filmed this film, and then absconded with the money. And so it turned out to be a scandalous kind of a thing, but it was supposed to be a way to bring Hollywood to Columbus. And this woman did a presentation on her mother and how she was involved with this obscure company that nobody really, even doing research through newspapers, websites, and things, you really can't find a whole lot of information on this. So she was able to give us some insight, show photos, show the script from the film, which is now lost. Things like that kind of come out of the woodwork sometimes, and it's such a welcome thing for us.
That's wonderful because we forget not all information is digitized and not all information survived to be digitized either.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's wonderful. I mean, I love things like YouTube. I love things like, archive.org is such a godsend for us when we're doing our program book and our blogs and things. But it's not all online, and it's not all online in great quality. So we always encourage people, even if this movie's on YouTube, come watch it on film. It's going to be a whole different experience live with an audience.
Going back towards the educational aspect of the fest and also going towards your group being preservationist. You've got a podcast and a blog. Can you tell me about how those came about and what people can expect if they listen or read?
So our blog started out as just something that I was dabbling in. I wasn't super regular with it. And then two of our staff members, Adam Williams and Rodney Bocock, we got together and said, what if we all watched something together each week and then commented on it? It's conversation style. It started out with all of us sort of round robining and taking on certain films and things. Over the years, Adam got a little bit tired of the weekly grind of it. So he decided, okay, I'm going to do a monthly 1 week and talk about these obscure topics. So he really does a lot of deep dives on Cincinnati film history because that's where he's from, and really digs up some really fascinating people and things that you would not find anywhere else. And then Rodney and I each week that Adam is not blogging, we do these watches where we discuss the films. And it's so interesting to get a different perspective. I bring the female perspective into things. Rodney brings the male perspective. He's got a lot of knowledge about old time radio that I don't have, and some, other topics. He's very interested in the B movies, whereas I'm a little bit more susceptible to the glossy A pictures. So I think it gives us a good variety. Our podcast was started by Caroline Brader Watts. She's great. She has like that NPR voice, and she has a lot of experience in, media. So she interviews our subjects and gets all the good details about whatever they're working on and how they're, involved in the show in any way. And then that's just sort of a way to keep people coming back, I think, to our website and thinking about us throughout the year. And it also helps us to preview for having a special guest at the upcoming show. It gives people just a little taste of what they can look forward to.
Maybe help them beat the post-festival blues. Going to a fest like this can be quite a high. You're being social, you're watching hours of movies at a time, so much so that it becomes almost a little surreal, where you're probably dreaming about movies at night too, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because you're right. There is a high that you come down from afterward, and it's kind of a bummer. And so being able to maybe interact with people on the blog, you can leave comments and things like that, is helpful. And it makes you, like I said, we feel like a family. When you come to these shows, especially if you've gone for a long time, it's the same faces a lot of times. I mean, I stay with one of the couples that I met at the show every summer to go to Capitol Fest. So, keeping that engagement going throughout the year is really important.
How far do people come for the fest? I noticed that one of your recommendations comes from Kieran Feldman of the Toronto Film Society. So people are crossing borders to come here. Where does everybody else come in from?
There's quite a few people who come from Canada. Several of our dealers are from Canada. We have people come from California. We have a guy drive in from Galveston, Texas. One guy comes from Florida. And actually, there's one of our enthusiastic paper collectors who comes from the UK, and I heard he's bringing his friend from Ireland, so we'll see. But we do attract people from all over, because especially if you're a collector, this is one of the last remaining film conventions that of this size that's still around. So this is kind of it. This is where you go.
How big is the dealer room?
It's more than 100 tables, so it's quite a space. You walk in and it can be overwhelming. You just kind of have to start slow and make your round. We also have a back hallway, which is where we're going to hold our seminars this year, that has the film room, the big film room. So it can be a lot. It's a lot of fun. That's why we're there for 4 days, so people can really take their time and enjoy themselves.
And the dealer room will be open all 4 days?
Yes.
Do you have any finds that you've made in the dealer room that you're particularly excited about?
Oh, absolutely. Over the years, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I didn't really collect things when I first started attending, that I didn't even really think about that aspect. I was just there to watch the movies, but I bought my first lobby card for $1 and it all started from there. I have so many movie posters and lobby cards and things now, but it's so much fun. Like I mentioned before, I want to write a book about Dick Powell one of these days. And so I collect a lot of stuff on him. And one of the dealers had, it's an original photograph. Actually, it's right here. I'll show it to you. This belonged to Rosemarie. It's from when Dick Powell was working at the Stanley Theater in Pittsburgh before he was in the movies. And he, introduced, he was the MC, so he introduced Rosemarie when she was still baby Rosemarie. And that actually came from her collection. So that came from the show. A friend of mine bought that for me. I was very excited. There's so much great stuff that you can find there. I'm a Van Johnson collector, so I've gotten lots and lots of Van Johnson lobby cards and things over the years, but you really never know what you'll find.
Do you have any great stories of people coming together at the festival? Have there been any Columbus Moving Picture Show marriages?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, we've been around for 3 years, so I can't imagine that there have been, but yeah, I don't know. Stu Fink was telling me, I believe he got married at Cinefest. I think he actually had his wedding there, but I haven't heard of any of those happening at Cinevent or the Columbus Moving Picture Show.
Film fans are so passionate, combining the different loves together.
Yes, absolutely. It's so funny. People, their passion, they want to pass it on to other people. So when I first started coming there, people were so excited that I was like 20. So they were so excited that I was there that sometimes, I mean, they would give me crazy deals on things because they were just so happy that I was interested. And so they wanted to foster that and keep it going. And it absolutely worked. It's a smart business strategy to do that. It's so much fun to go there. It truly is because you get to talk to people who are interested in the exact same thing that you're interested in. You might learn a few things, especially for me being on the younger end of things. I wasn't around necessarily when some of these people were still alive, but some of the people you'll meet at the convention maybe met, somebody like Jerry Lewis, or one of my friends met Celeste Holm at a autograph signing, and just all kinds of stories. People who used to go to the Sons of the Desert conventions when some of our gang cast would go. I have a friend who tells me, oh, you would have loved Spanky. Of course I would have loved Spanky. I never had that chance.
But they're there and they can share the stories with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and keep the memory going.
Is it a lot of responsibility to be a memory keeper now or a memory maker yourself?
Yes, it is. It is, because those kinds of stories about, especially the personal interactions or the personal memories, those have an emotional attachment to them. And to pass those along and keep that flame going is more important and vital than the boring details of he was born on this date on this place. The emotional connections to it are why we care and why we want to keep this going. There's an emotional resonance to the stories behind the scenes as well as the ones on the screen.
And I think a lot of classic film fans do need regional fests like this. Not everybody can afford to go to California or go to New York for the festivals. If somebody's planning on going to the Columbus Moving Picture Show, what can they expect to spend just on, the passes, tickets?
The weekend passes for all 4 days are $80 at the door, or $30 for one day. And I think that's a steal because even if you just sit and watch movies, you're going to get your money's worth for sure. But the fact that we have the dealer room and the seminars, and we also have book signings in the lobby by the authors, I mean, it's absolutely a steal. If you look at things like Turner Classic Movies, some of the ones where you do have to fly and add that in, it can get very expensive. So this being a little bit more affordable and regional, where you might be able to drive to it, I think is special. Our show is all on one floor in a hotel, so you don't have to travel anywhere. The only exception to that is Wednesday night, we have a pre-screening show at the Wexner Center at campus. It's less than $20 for an Uber to get there, so it's not super expensive or difficult to get to that show. But otherwise, everything is on location. So you don't have any real travel expenses. Whereas some of these other conventions like TCM, they're held at different theaters, different venues. You have to get there. So that's a little bit of a hassle, especially, I mean, a lot of people who attend our show are elderly. Getting around is not so easy. So this is great for that crowd because it's all in one spot. Easy access.
Easy access, no running around. The only thing you'll be out of breath from is the movie, right?
Absolutely, yes. You'll be laughing so hard, you'll have to catch your breath.
For the passes too, you mentioned kids are free. Kids under what age are free?
Kids under 18. Any minors are free with an adult because, like I said, we want to foster that love in the young people, keep it going for future generations.
If somebody's watching or listening to this and they're on the fence, should I go? Should I not go? What would you say to them to say, yes, come on out to Columbus, Ohio. Come join the family.
I think taking the leap is the hardest part. Once you go, you're hooked. You're going to come back every year. That was the case for me. And I think it's the case for a lot of people. Cinevent used to advertise itself as being the friendliest film festival around. And I think that has kept up with the Columbus Moving Picture Show. It's a super friendly place. People are happy to see new faces. People are happy to share their knowledge and their friendship. I've met people in a day and suddenly we're going out to dinner together and sharing meals and the whole thing. So it's a very easy place to make friends, and it's affordable. It's a lot of fun. If you love old movies, you're guaranteed to love this show.
That sounds wonderful. You basically can go not knowing anybody and you'll find a friendly, receptive crowd.
Yes. And it's interesting too, you can meet people who are involved in the industry, so to speak. I remember when I found out that Scott Eyman, the author, attended, I was so nervous to talk to him. And I had bought one of his books and I was telling myself, you should get that book signed by him. He's right there. But I was so shy and nervous to approach him that I didn't for years. And then later, when I did become friendly with him, we kind of laughed about the fact that I was scared to approach him because it's such an accessible, easy place to meet people. And everybody's on the same playing field. There aren't people who are better than others. Just because this person over here has a boutique label and knows a lot about the show doesn't mean he can't talk to someone who's just a fan, because we're all fans. We're all there for the same reason.
Passionate people have come to discuss their passion.
Yes.
Well, the fest, or should I say convention, is rapidly approaching. It's going to be end of May. Why don't you give me start and end of the festival dates for the audience and where they can get news about the event, your website, and where they can follow on social media to get up-to-date news items as they come out.
The dates are May 23rd through 26th. It's at the Downtown Renaissance in Columbus, Ohio. Check out our website. It's columbusmovingpictureshow.com, or our email address is columbusmovingpictureshow@gmail.com if you have any questions. But you can sign up for our mailing list. We do send out emails to give people updates and things on the show throughout the year. But you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, and Instagram. We do regularly update those as well.
Thank you so much, Samantha Glasser, for sitting down with me, founder of Columbus Moving Picture Show. I've really enjoyed talking with you and hearing about the festival with you, and I really want to attend it someday and the convention.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. So I hope if anybody's listening, or if they're watching this, if you do end up going, to let me know. I'd like to hear about it, like to hear what you saw, what you enjoyed about the festival, and to let me know if this did motivate you to go to the festival. For our next segment, I'm going to premiere a special interview for National Classic Movie Day. I hope the interview helps raise awareness of the holiday. Rick Armstrong of the Classic Film and TV Cafe blog created National Classic Movie Day in 2015. He said, "I realize that classic movies have been totally ignored when it comes to large-scale, single-day tributes." He's right. His campaign is grassroots and spread over social media by classic film fans and movie bloggers. And who is better to raise awareness than Dita Von Teese? She's a classic film lover, which has influenced her career and vintage style. For the holiday, I'm sharing a never-before-released interview with Von Teese. I really don't know why I've sat on it this long. I had a chance to ask her 3 questions via writing, all of them focused on classic film, of course. She responded with the video you're about to watch or listen to. Watching classic films with your mother turned you into a lifelong fan. What would you say to persuade anyone reluctant to watch classic films to give them a chance?
I had someone tell me once that they didn't like old movies because they didn't like that style of acting. This came from a famous actor. And I said, well, wouldn't you want to notice the style of acting and how yours differed or how it evolved? So I kind of think the same thing. It's if you like films of any kind, it's good to see the history of it. For instance, I was explaining to someone the other day, they said, why don't they make movies like this anymore? And I said, because those were the biggest budget movies of the time, like the musicals. That's what everyone wanted to see. And so those millions of dollars of budget would go into musicals, and that will never be the case again. So I don't know. I guess I wouldn't do too much convincing because, if somebody doesn't care about it, then I'm not going to force them to watch it any more than I'm going to let anybody force me to watch something I don't want to watch.
Question number 2. Of all the movie stars you admire, it's obvious you're especially fond of Betty Grable. What is it about Grable that grabs your heart?
For some reason, it was the first imprint on me for musicals, and I love that era, and I love some of the movie stars that played around her, like Carmen Miranda was a favorite. And so there was a whole series of movies that they starred in together, and I really enjoy them. And when I learned more about Betty Grable, I just found she was a real likable person, when I read more about her reputation in Hollywood, and she was a hard worker. She didn't ever really want to be taken seriously as an actress. She loved musicals and song and dance. And I like that about her, that she knew what she was good at, and she didn't apologize for that.
Question number 3. What classic movie musicals do you recommend because of their choreography?
I have to say one of my favorites is called The Bandwagon, and it's with Sid Charisse and Fred Astaire. And that's, for me, one of the best. And I would say pretty much anything with Fred Astaire is my favorite, although there's lots of other great scenes, like that famous Nicholas Brothers scene. Anything with the Nicholas Brothers really is great for choreography, or anything that Hermes Pan did the choreography for. So I don't know, I have a lot of favorites, but The Bandwagon sticks out the most. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Dita Von Teese, for your answers. I'm sure a lot of classic film fans have enjoyed them. Maybe they even have some movies to watch now. And thank you, listeners and watchers, for joining me for another episode of Spellbound with Beth Ann. More episodes will be forthcoming, so get a chance to sit for a spell again. Until then, my friends, bye.